My whole life, I thought my parents had passed away when I was a toddler, but they suddenly appeared at my college apartment, revealing a secret no one prepared me for. Betrayed by everyone I trusted, forced to confront the truth behind my painful upbringing. Should I forgive them or cut them off completely? When I, Andrew 22M, was just 2 years old, I was told my parents had passed away in a car accident. My paternal aunt and uncle, let's call them Heather, 47 female, and Greg, 50 male, adopted me. I don't remember anything about the accident or my biological parents at all. What I do remember is never really fitting in. Even though Heather and Greg had 2 older kids, my cousins, Emily 27 and Ben 25 male, I always felt like an outsider. Growing up, they had freedom, after-school activities, hanging out with friends, normal stuff. Me, I was only allowed 2 places unless I was with them, home and school. There was more. Heather could be violent. She broke my arm once, and usually, no one seemed to care but Greg. I'll give him credit, however little, for taking me to the hospital that one time. But honestly, the bar wasn't high. As soon as I turned 19, I moved to the next state for college, music studies. Thanks to some inheritance, my parents set aside. Go Grizz, life was starting to make sense. Then, yesterday, out of nowhere, my maternal aunt and uncle, let's call them Mark, 44M, and Julia, 43F, showed up at my apartment, 10 hours away. I had no idea what was going on. They looked serious and told me we needed to have a talk. We stepped out onto the porch, and then came the shock. They confessed they were actually my parents. They weren't dead. For 17 years, I'd called them aunt and uncle, trusted them, turned to them at family gatherings. They'd be the ones to notice Heather's marks, sometimes comfort me. But they'd never confronted my adopted parents, never said a word. I didn't let them explain. I just couldn't. I snapped, told them I didn't want their excuses, and slammed the door in their faces. I heard them knocking, but I just couldn't face them. Only after they left did I break down. Thank God for my roommate, Chloe. She just sat with me while I cried, probably for hours. It didn't end there. Heather, my adoptive aunt, found out and messaged me on Facebook. She still holds my inheritance over me, so I can't just block her. She lectured me, said I was being cruel for not listening to my parents. How could I react any differently? I grew up believing I was an orphan, suddenly knowing they'd been there the whole time, watching, never stepping in. My mind was spinning. I know Heather's still manipulative, she always has been, but it still gets to me, even now. Later, Julia, my mother, messaged, trying to explain. She said they'd been struggling financially back then and couldn't afford to care for me, so they let Heather and Greg take me in, since they wanted another child but couldn't conceive. I guess I understand, kind of, but it just feels like another betrayal. Now I'm at a crossroads. Do I try to build a relationship with my real parents? Or is it too late, after they left me to be abused under Heather's roof? Update 1. First off, thank you all for the overwhelming support and thoughtful comments on my original post. I haven't been able to respond to everyone directly. My mental health has taken a real hit and I haven't had the energy, but I've read everything. Taking a lot of your advice, I've started seeing a school counselor who's been amazing. She's helped me lay things out rationally and work on a plan. It's helped to have someone outside the situation to talk to. Here's what I've worked out so far. 1. Create space. I called Heather and Greg. They weren't happy, lots of upset and harsh words, but so far, they're mostly keeping their distance like I asked. I had a similar conversation with Julia and Mark, this time in person, over lunch. They were more understanding and are giving me space to process. 2. DNA test. I asked Julia and Mark about doing a maternity-paternity test. They agreed right away, which kind of eased my nerves. We're ordering the tests through LabCorp, as suggested by some friends in law and med school. The inheritance situation. I haven't brought this up with Julia and Mark yet. I want to wait until I have genetic proof before discussing details. According to them, they gave me up strictly because of finances, but I'm puzzled where the inheritance comes from. My only theory is it came directly from my late grandfather. He was wealthy, 7 figures per family, so maybe it was a trust set up for me, not something from Julia or Mark. Just speculation for now. 4. Why did they do it? Even if the DNA confirms they're my parents, I still have so many questions. Why keep up the lie for nearly 2 decades? Why pretend to be dead rather than admit they gave me to relatives? Why did they never intervene when they saw what Heather and Greg were doing to me? And why now? 5. Becoming independent. Regardless of how things shake out with Julia and Mark, I'm planning to disconnect from Heather and Greg next time I'm home. I'll gather all my legal documents and personal stuff in their house, everything that's rightfully mine, so they can't hang anything over my head anymore. Someone said it's keeping me within striking distance of the stick. Weird metaphor, but I get it. Not a huge update, but it's been a week since my last post, and with how many people have supported me, I thought it was worth sharing. Please, if anyone has more advice, I'd appreciate it. Update 2. It's been a while, and I know a lot of you have been following this, so here's what's happened since. Here's a recap for newcomers. I'm Andrew, 22M. Heather, 47F, and Greg, 50M, are my aunt and uncle who adopted me after my parents supposedly died in a car wreck when I was 2. Julia, 43F, and Mark, 44M, my maternal aunt and uncle, showed up at my college apartment out of the blue and told me they're actually my biological parents. Names all changed for privacy. The last month has been brutal, fighting with everyone, crying, feeling lost. I've been diagnosed with depression and PTSD, mainly related to this whole mess. The kind words and therapy have helped though. Let's break things down. DNA test. About a week after my last update, the results came in from LabCorp. Julia and Mark are definitely my biological parents. I wasn't surprised, since they agreed to the tests without hesitation, but it hit me hard. I wasn't sure whether to feel release that they were alive, or just more pain, knowing they'd left me in such a horrible situation. Inheritance. You guys guessed it. The money came from my grandfather. He was amazing, close to me, and very wealthy. The inheritance that Heather, Greg, Julia, and Mark all referenced came directly from him, not any of the parents. When I found out, I immediately began the process of transferring management to a financial advisor outside any of my relatives' control. The why questions. I confronted Julia and Mark. They claimed their situation only improved after my grandfather died when I was 8, and by then, they didn't want to uproot me. I guess that's one justification. Could they have done more? Definitely. Did they watch me suffer and do nothing? Yes, and I'm not ready to forgive that. Distancing myself. I've gone minimal contact with Heather and Greg, planning for no contact in the future. But what about Julia and Mark? That's the struggle. Part of me wants to allow them to be part of my life after losing out on parental figures. But a bigger part of me says what they did can't be forgiven easily, maybe ever. I have no intention of updating again unless things change, but I want others to see the end of the hardest chapter of my life. And maybe get advice for what comes next. I read every single comment, even if I can't reply. Thank you all for helping me survive this, really. That brings this story to a close. It's clear there are no easy answers when it comes to repairing deep family betrayal, especially when the truth shakes up your very sense of self. The narrator now faces the challenge of deciding how much, if any of his past, should have a place in his future. I've got a question for you. Have you ever discovered a hidden family secret you couldn't forgive? What would you do if you were in Andrew's position?